I know your mind is still running tonight, turning over the worries of the day. Let me tell you a story about a little girl who walked through a dark forest with her friends, each of them carrying a quiet longing in their heart. Perhaps, in their journey, you will find your own rest. Once upon a time, Dorothy and her companions had been walking for a long while through the thick woods. The road beneath their feet was still paved with yellow brick, but the bricks were almost hidden now under dried branches and fallen leaves. The walking was not at all good, and their steps were slow and careful. There were few birds in this part of the forest, but now and then, from somewhere deep among the trees, came a low growl, a sound so strange and sudden that it made the little girl's heart beat fast. She did not know what made those sounds, but Toto knew, and he walked close by her side in silence. "How long will it be?" Dorothy asked the Tin Woodman, "before we are out of the forest?" "I cannot tell," he answered gently, "for I have never been to the Emerald City. But my father went there once, and he said it was a long journey through a dangerous country. Yet nearer to the city where Oz dwells, the country becomes beautiful. But I am not afraid so long as I have my oil can, and nothing can hurt the Scarecrow, and you bear upon your forehead the mark of the Good Witch's kiss. That will protect you from harm." "But Toto," said the girl anxiously, "what will protect him?" "We must protect him ourselves if he is in danger," replied the Tin Woodman. Just as he spoke, a terrible roar shook the forest, and the next moment a great lion bounded into the road. With one blow of his paw, he sent the Scarecrow spinning over to the edge of the road, and then he struck at the Tin Woodman with his sharp claws. But to the lion's surprise, he could make no impression on the tin, although the woodman fell over and lay still. Little Toto ran barking toward the lion, and the great beast opened his mouth to bite the dog. Dorothy, fearing Toto would be killed, rushed forward and slapped the lion upon his nose as hard as she could. "Don't you dare to bite Toto! You ought to be ashamed of yourself, a big beast like you, to bite a poor little dog." "I didn't bite him," said the lion, rubbing his nose with his paw. "No, but you tried to," she retorted. "You are nothing but a big coward." "I know it," said the lion, hanging his head in shame. "I've always known it, but how can I help it?" "Is the other one stuffed also?" asked the lion, watching as Dorothy helped the woodman up again. "That's why he nearly blunted my claws. And what is that little animal you are so tender of?" "He is my dog, Toto," answered Dorothy. "It's a curious animal and seems remarkably small now that I look at him. No one would think of biting such a little thing except a coward like me," continued the lion sadly. "What makes you a coward?" asked Dorothy, looking at the great beast in wonder, for he was as big as a small horse. "It's a mystery," replied the lion. "I suppose I was born that way. All the other animals expect me to be brave, for the lion is everywhere thought to be the king of beasts. But whenever I've met a man, I've been awfully scared, and I just roared at him, and he always ran away. If the elephants and the tigers and the bears had ever tried to fight me, I should have run myself. I'm such a coward." "But that isn't right. The king of beasts shouldn't be a coward," said the Scarecrow. "I know it," returned the lion, wiping a tear from his eye with the tip of his tail. "It is my great sorrow, and makes my life very unhappy. Whenever there is danger, my heart begins to beat fast." "Perhaps you have heart disease," said the Tin Woodman. "If so, you ought to be glad, for it proves you have a heart. For my part, I have no heart, so I cannot have heart disease." "Perhaps," said the lion thoughtfully, "if I had no heart, I should not be a coward." "I am going to the Great Oz to ask him to give me some brains," remarked the Scarecrow, "for my head is stuffed with straw." "And I am going to ask him to give me a heart," said the Woodman. "And I am going to ask him to send Toto and me back to Kansas," added Dorothy. "Do you think Oz could give me courage?" asked the Cowardly Lion. "Just as easily as he could give me brains," said the Scarecrow. "Then, if you don't mind, I'll go with you," said the lion, "for my life is simply unbearable without a bit of courage." "You will be very welcome," answered Dorothy, "for you will help to keep away the other wild beasts." So once more the little company set off upon the journey, the lion walking with stately strides at Dorothy's side. Toto did not approve of this new comrade at first, but after a time he became more at ease, and presently Toto and the Cowardly Lion had grown to be good friends. During the rest of that day, there was no other adventure to mar the peace of their journey. Once, indeed, the Tin Woodman stepped upon a beetle that was crawling along the road, and killed the poor little thing. This made him very unhappy, for he was always careful not to hurt any living creature, and he wept several tears of sorrow and regret. Those tears ran down over the hinges of his jaw, and there they rusted. When Dorothy asked him a question, he could not open his mouth. The Scarecrow seized the oil can and oiled the Woodman's jaws, so that after a few moments he could talk as well as before. "This will serve me a lesson," said he, "to look where I step, for crying rusts my jaws and I cannot speak." Thereafter he walked very carefully, with his eyes on the road. Let the quiet patience of the Tin Woodman settle over you tonight. You don't need to do anything at all. Just listen. Just rest. They were obliged to camp out that night under a large tree in the forest. The Tin Woodman chopped a great pile of wood, and Dorothy built a splendid fire that warmed her and made her feel less lonely. She and Toto ate the last of their bread, and now she did not know what they would do for breakfast. "If you wish," said the lion, "I will go into the forest and kill a deer for you." "Don't, please don't," begged the Tin Woodman. "I should certainly weep if you killed a poor deer, and then my jaws would rust again." So the lion went away and found his own supper, and the Scarecrow filled Dorothy's basket with nuts, ignoring his own clumsy hands, and kept his distance from the fire, for he feared a spark might get into his straw. When she lay down to sleep, he covered her with dry leaves that kept her snug and warm, and she slept soundly until morning. When it was daylight, the girl bathed her face in a little rippling brook, and soon after they all started toward the Emerald City. This was to be an eventful day for the travelers. They had hardly been walking an hour when they saw before them a great ditch that crossed the road and divided the forest. It was very wide, and when they crept up to the edge and looked into it, they could see it was also very deep, with many big, jagged rocks at the bottom. The sides were so steep that none of them could climb down, and for a moment it seemed their journey must end. "What shall we do?" asked Dorothy despairingly. But the Scarecrow said, "We cannot fly, that is certain. Neither can we climb down into this great ditch. Therefore, if we cannot jump over it, we must stop where we are." "I think I could jump over it," said the Cowardly Lion, after measuring the distance carefully in his mind. "Then we are all right," answered the Scarecrow, "for you can carry us all over on your back, one at a time." "I am terribly afraid of falling myself," said the Cowardly Lion, "but I suppose there is nothing to do but try it." So the Scarecrow sat upon the lion's back. The big beast walked to the edge of the gulf and crouched down, then giving a great spring, he shot through the air and landed safely on the other side. Dorothy went next, holding Toto in her arms, and then the Tin Woodman. Then they all sat down for a few moments to give the beast a chance to rest, for his great leaps had made his breath short. They found the forest very thick on this side, and it looked dark and gloomy. To add to their discomfort, they soon heard strange noises, and the lion whispered that it was in this part of the country that the Kalidas lived, monstrous beasts with bodies like bears and heads like tigers. "I'm terribly afraid of the Kalidas," he said. The lion was about to reply further when suddenly they came to another gulf across the road. But this one was so broad and deep that the lion knew at once he could not leap across it. So they sat down to consider, and after serious thought the Scarecrow said, "Here is a great tree, standing close to the ditch. If the Tin Woodman can chop it down so that it will fall to the other side, we can walk across it easily." "That is a first-rate idea," said the lion. The woodman set to work at once, and so sharp was his axe that the tree was soon chopped nearly through. Then the lion pushed with all his might, and slowly the big tree tipped and fell with a crash across the ditch. They had just started to cross this queer bridge when a sharp growl made them all look up, and to their horror, they saw running toward them two great beasts with bodies like bears and heads like tigers. "They are the Kalidas," said the Cowardly Lion, beginning to tremble. "Quick!" cried the Scarecrow. "Let us cross over." So Dorothy went first, holding Toto, the Tin Woodman followed, and the Scarecrow came next. The lion, although he was certainly afraid, turned to face the Kalidas, And then he gave so loud and terrible a roar that even the fierce beasts stopped short. But seeing they were bigger than the lion, the Kalidas again rushed forward, and the lion crossed over the tree and turned to see what they would do next. Without stopping an instant, the fierce beasts also began to cross. "We are lost," said the lion to Dorothy, "for they will surely tear us to pieces. But stand close behind me, and I will fight them as long as I am alive." "Wait a minute," called the Scarecrow. He asked the woodman to chop away the end of the tree that rested on their side of the ditch. The Tin Woodman began to use his axe at once, and just as the two Kalidas were nearly across, the tree fell with a crash into the gulf, carrying the ugly, snarling brutes with it, and both were dashed to pieces on the sharp rocks at the bottom. "Well," said the cowardly lion, drawing a long breath of relief, "I see we are going to live a little while longer. Those creatures frightened me so badly that my heart is beating yet." "Ah," said the Tin Woodman sadly, "I wish I had a heart to beat." This adventure made the travelers more anxious than ever to get out of the forest, and they walked so fast that Dorothy became tired and had to ride on the lion's back. To their great joy, the trees became thinner the farther they advanced, and in the afternoon they suddenly came upon a broad river, flowing swiftly just before them. On the other side, they could see the road of yellow brick running through a beautiful country, with green meadows dotted with bright flowers and trees hanging full of delicious fruits. "How shall we cross the river?" asked Dorothy. "That is easily done," replied the Scarecrow. "The Tin Woodman must build us a raft so we can float to the other side." So the woodman took his axe and began to chop down small trees to make a raft. And while he was busy, the Scarecrow found on the riverbank a tree full of fine fruit, which pleased Dorothy, who had eaten nothing but nuts all day. But it takes time to make a raft, and when night came, the work was not done. So they found a cozy place under the trees where they slept well until the morning. And Dorothy dreamed of the Emerald City and of the good Wizard Oz, who would soon send her back to her own home again. Feel how deeply Dorothy slept there beneath the trees, wrapped in the quiet of the forest with her friends resting close by. Let that same deep peace wrap around you now. Tomorrow, we will follow Dorothy as she builds her raft and crosses the wide river toward the shining Emerald City. Share with someone who needs rest. Subscribe to Sleep Factory. You've done enough. Rest now. Sleep well, dear friend.